Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video I'll be sharing with you all of my favorite books of 2020. So I think 2020 was one of my best reading months ever. I read a total of 70 books and 25,707 pages. So I would say it was a very successful reading year despite everything that's kind of been going on with the world. I feel like having been in lockdown and quarantine, I think it just made my reading flourish because you can't really do anything. So yeah, I've really gravitated towards reading as like a coping mechanism with like everything that's going on. So these are the 14 books that were my favorite over the year of 2020. I'm also going to be doing a least favorite books of 2020 as well, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But essentially these are 14 books that really stood out for me. I'm not including any rereads except one because obviously if I'm rereading them I really enjoy them, so like I didn't want to include those in it, but I feel like these are kind of all over the place in terms of genre, which is very good as well. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So starting out, I first have The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennet. This is a book that was actually one of the Tales and Teacups book club picks kind of towards the end of summer, early fall, and I was really excited for this one. I had high expectations going into it and I heard so many great things about it, so I was actually pleasantly surprised that it did live up to my expectations. So the general premise of this story, it follows two sisters who grow up in this very rural town that is very much places value on people based on the color of their skin, and those who are whiter, like the black people that are lighter skinned are treated better than those that have a more darker skin tone. So these sisters end up, I think when they're like 18, end up running away, and so we follow the sisters over the course of several decades. So one sister ends up being able to pass as white, so she lives a life where she in like a lily white community and just pretends to be a white person. And then we follow another sister who ends up being in an abusive relationship, and over the course of these decades we also follow the story of their daughters and how their pasts intertwine. And I think this book brings a lot of important dialogue into how much of our self-identity is based on how much of our self-worth is based on the color of our skin. And it shows how, especially because this covers like 5 decades worth, or like 4 to 5 decades worth of time, you get to see how things have changed, but at the same time how they haven't really changed a lot in terms of racism in America. And I think this book was really interesting, and I really loved her writing style. It's told in like, there's not a lot of plot progression. It's told in like reflections of the characters and their memories, but it also kind of has the plot progress that way, which I thought was very interesting. My only complaint was that this one, like, I wanted a little bit more from it, but I really enjoyed it. I actually got my sister a copy of this for Christmas, and she's really excited and she's reading this now and she loves it, so I think a lot of you will like this as well. This one is definitely a standout. When I was looking at all these, this one definitely stands out for me because I had very low expectations going into it, and it honestly just blew me away. And it is Long Bright River by Liz Moore, and I had like, it's been hit or miss with a lot of the book of the month picks for me. I think I've only enjoyed like 3 out of the 6 that I ended up picking for my 6-month subscription that my sister got me for my birthday. Yeah, I didn't have a lot of hopes going into this, but this one honestly, like I said, blew me away. The premise of this story is that it follows this girl who is a police officer in the Philadelphia PD, and there are these strings of murders taking place that are staged to look like overdoses, but they are actually stranglings. And so while this is going on, she's trying to find her sister, who is a heroin addict who she hasn't seen in several months. So as she's trying to figure out what happened to her sister, we get flashbacks to the sisters growing up with their heroin addict mother, and it kind of goes off from there. But this one is honestly amazing. Like, I finished this within maybe like 2 or 3 days. I couldn't put it down. It raises a lot of important discussions about drug addiction, abuse of police power, and all those things, and honestly I think you guys would really like this as well. Like I said, I wasn't expecting anything from this, but it honestly out of all these, this one is probably within like the top 5. This is one that I read back in January, and it has really stuck with me throughout the year, and it is Beartown by Fredrick Backman. And this is one, I also read the sequel, Us Against You, as well this year. So, and there's a third one coming out, so this one is honestly really good. But basically the premise of this story is that it follows this small town in Sweden called Beartown that doesn't really have a lot going for them. They're kind of in economic turmoil, and they're just, people aren't, like, it's not a place people are proud to be from. But when the hockey team, junior hockey team, starts doing really well, and when they're actually making it to the finals, but on the night, a couple nights before the final game, the star hockey player ends up raping one of the general manager's daughter, and it goes from there, and it shows how this kind of leaves the town divided. And again, it also brings a lot of important discussion points on rape culture, which is this book is very heartbreaking and frustrating because it describes things that happen every single day, and it just leaves you very mad. But what I really like about this book is the writing style of Fredrick Backman. It's very lyrical and whimsical, and I feel like the narration is basically told from like the spirit of the town, and you follow a few different people in this town and community. And yeah, I definitely want to pick up more of his books going into 2021. Next up, I have one of the few historical fiction books that I read this year, and I'm definitely changing that going into the new year, and it was Lost Roses by Martha Hall Kelly. This is the second book in the Lilac Girls trilogy, but essentially this series follows so in the first book we follow Caroline during World War II, then we follow Caroline's mother Eliza during World War I, and the third one, which is coming out, I want to say in like March, follows Caroline's grandmother during the Civil War. So this one follows Eliza around World War I, and so we follow Eliza's friend, who is an aristocrat in Russia and also a peasant in Russia as well. So obviously, given World War I, this covers a lot of important things, not only World War I, but also the Russian Revolution. And being an aristocrat, this one character is just kind of, her whole life's thrown upside down. And what I really like, this made me really fall in love with that time period again, because I feel like so many of the historical fictions that I read are geared towards World War II, and so this one made me kind of re-fall in love with this era, especially the Russian Revolution. I remember learning about that in school and just being totally like obsessed with it. So this one made me really kind of fall in love with that. But this one, again, what I found with Lost Roses is just her writing style, with Lilac Girls, is just her amazing writing style. It just totally encaptures you in her writing. Like, you can sit down and read and you will be reading and look up and be like, wow, I've just been reading 50 pages. Like, it goes by so quickly, and you're just totally invested in the different storylines and how they're all intermixed. I think that's where she really shines. This was the biggest book that I read this year, with over 900 pages in it, and it was Troubled Blood by Robert Galbraith. And this was one that I was really excited about. Me and my sister are obsessed with this crime series, and I was really excited to see that this one was coming out. And so this one, why it's honestly a honker of a book, is because it takes place over the course of the year. So Cormoran is approached by this woman at a pub where she asked him if he can investigate her mother's disappearance that happened in the 70s. And so what I really like about this is not only is it a cold case, but we also get to follow these characters over the course of the year, and they both have a lot of personal growth over this one. I feel like with Lethal White, the last book, Robin and Cormoran were at such ends with themselves, and they were just very moving in different directions, but now their kind of friendship has rekindled, and we get to see kind of that progress. So I'm hoping they finally get together soon. But this one was a lot of fun, especially with the cold case aspect in here. It just made it like really unique and different from the other ones in here. So like I said, I've just loved this series, and I just need Cormoran and Robin just to get together already. I know I said I wasn't going to include any rereads in here, but this was one I honestly read so long ago, it was like reading it for the first time because it's been so long. And so me and my friend ended up rereading the entire Gallagher Girls series by Ali Carter over the course of the summer, and it was honestly so much fun. I feel like the first two books are very much kind of juvenile, and they're just they make you kind of roll your eyes because they're very young in this one, but it's like the Harry Potter series where the characters not only grow up, but that also the subject matter of the books also becomes darker. I think it's like the third, fifth, and seventh, or third, fifth, and sixth books are my favorite, and they honestly are just so good. It made me really realize how much I love this series growing up. This was the equivalent of my Harry Potter growing up, because I didn't read Harry Potter until all the books were out, so I didn't have the excitement of kind of growing up with the characters and the excitement of having like a new book come out. So this was that series for me. And so like I think I started reading this around grade 6, grade 7, and then the last book came out in my first year of university. So this is one that's definitely followed me for like a long period of my life. So yeah, I just love it. I love seeing the characters grow and just come into their own, and just how the stakes get so much higher with each book. So yeah, it was just super nostalgic too, because this series is near and dear to my heart, and I'm also quite like a little bit concerned just how bad my memory is, because I honestly didn't remember anything after like book 2. So next up I have A Cold Trial by Robert Dugoni, and this is the newest installment in the Tracy Crosswhite series. And so I love this series. I marathoned this series in the summer of 2019. I remember bringing a few of those books with me when we went to Barcelona, and so I like quickly fell in love with the series, and so I was really excited for the newest installment to be coming out this year in 2020. And so what I really love about this one in particular is that it follows Tracy in a very kind of pivotal point, not only in her life but in her career as well. I'm not going to spoil what it is, but I really loved how she was kind of tackling the different, like the struggle of deciding what she wants to do, what society's telling her to do, what she wants to do. So I think it's very interesting. And this one was also another cold case as well, and I feel like a lot of like the ones in this series in particular are cold cases, so I think it makes it very different of trying to unravel things that happened like 20-30 years ago. I think that makes it a lot of fun. Yeah, this one is just, I didn't figure out who actually was the killer in this one, so that made it a lot more fun as well. But yeah, if you're looking for a crime series to start, I highly recommend you check this one out. Next up, this was one that was very much outside of my comfort zone, but I'm glad I took that kind of leap to try something new, and it is The Last Agent by Robert Dugoni, and this is the second book in the Charles Jenkins trilogy series. I'm not sure how many books there are going to be in this one, but essentially it follows a former CIA operative named Charles Jenkins. In the first one, he is approached by his old boss in the CIA to investigate what was been called the Eighth Sister. So this is a person that is giving like spy intelligence information to the Russian government on the Seven Sisters, who are women in Russia that are spying on Russia for the American government. So he kind of goes off there. But what I really love about this one is that it's super suspenseful. Like, it's a very good game of like cat and mouse, and just like you're on your toes the entire time and you just want to keep reading to see what happens. I usually don't gravitate towards these type of books or anything like that, or movies I should say, or books as well, but I'm glad I did, because I have, like I said, I've read his Tracy Crosswhite series, so I'm kind of familiar with this author, but like I said, this one was just a lot of fun. So next up I have Gone to Darkness by Barbara Nickless, and this is the fourth installment in the Sydney Parnell series. So being the fourth book in the series, I can't really explain what goes on in here, but it follows Sydney Parnell, who is a former war vet from Iraq, and so in the first book we're introduced to her as she's like a railroad detective, and so she and her canine companion Clyde end up solving like murders, and it kind of goes off from there. But what I really love particularly about this one is that she's kind of in a new role now, and just seeing her kind of overcome the challenges of being in a new position, and just seeing her adapt to these different life scenarios was just a lot of fun. And this one was also super creepy as well. You get the perspective of the killer, which makes it just extra creepy, and the end was just so intense. So if you're looking, like, I think this is probably one of my favorite of the like modern, like newer crime series, because of how unique it is, and it also raises good discussions on how there's a lot of resources for people when they go off to war, but there isn't a lot for when they come back, so a lot of them would deal with PTSD, and I like how this book kind of sheds light on that. Next up, I have 9 Elms by Robert Brynzda, and this is one that I really loved. I read his Erica Foster series and I really loved them, so I was excited to see what this new series has in hold. So I read the first book and also the second one that came out towards the end of 2020, and I really loved them both. So basically the premise of this crime series is that it follows Kate Marshall, who 15 years ago was involved in the 9 Elms investigation, and so she ends up catching the 9 Elms killer, and what should have been a really good kind of pivotal point in her career ends up being her downfall, and the media ends up kind of ripping her apart from that. So even though we like flash forward to present day, she's still trying to pick up the pieces that of her life being dismantled from those events. So she ends up being a criminology professor, and so when she is approached by this family and there's these strings of murders taking place that are very eerily similar to the 9 Elms killings, she's kind of inadvertently involved in the investigation. But I think Kate is just a very complex and interesting character, and I really loved seeing her overcome her demons, and I like how she's flawed and she has a lot of struggles, but she's always kind of working on that, and I think that makes her very complex and dynamic. So I really love seeing her kind of work through this, and I'm really excited for the 3rd book coming out hopefully in 2021. So this is just a series in general because I read maybe 5 or 6 books over the course of this year, and it is the Inspector Gamache series by Louise, and this is one that I definitely want to get caught up in going in, like finishing 2021. Like I want to be completely caught up with this series. But basically the premise of this series in general is that it follows Inspector Gamache, who is the head of the homicide department in Quebec, and so he ends up working on these homicides that somehow are connected to this small town called Three Pines, which kind of reminds me of A Stars Hollow. But what I really like about this series is not only is it from my hometown, like is it from my home country that kind of reminds me of home and has some Canadian culture things that I think people who aren't Canadian won't really pick up on, but it also has a very unique main character. I feel like with a lot of the crime series, the investigators are very jaded and cruel from all the work that they've, all the things they've had to experience at work. But Gamache is very empathetic, he is very calm, he's very quiet, he's a very good listener, and I think that makes him unique. But also I love the sense of having that found family feel from Three Pines. It just, I want to live there. Like this quaint Quebec town, around the mountains, just sounds beautiful and picturesque. So yeah, I just love a lot of things of a lot of the things that go on in these books, and they're a lot of fun. So yeah, I've been very pleased with this, and like I said, I'm going to be marathoning through these over the new year. This is one that was sent to me by the publisher, and I wasn't really expecting to love it as much as I did, and it is the Eve Ronan series by Lee Goldberg. I read this one and then Bone Canyon, which is the second one, which comes out in January. But what I really love about this series is that it took me by surprise, but it follows Eve Ronan, who was just kind of a regular police officer doing robbery investigations, but she ends up becoming a viral sensation when she ends up arresting a celebrity who is abusing his girlfriend. And so that caused that allowed for the police department to get a lot of positive press, and so kind of taking advantage of that positive press, Eve gets promoted into homicide. So she ends up being the youngest homicide detective ever in LA, and so this one kind of deals with her first case, kind of learning the ropes and kind of going on from there, which I think is just a lot of fun. And like I said, it took me by surprise. These are incredibly fast-paced and just a lot of fun, and over the span of the 2 books, I love seeing how much Eve has grown already, which is a lot of fun. These are very graphic, just so you're aware, especially the first one was pretty graphic, but yeah, they're just a lot of fun. They're incredibly quick reads, they're just super suspenseful, you just don't want to put them down. And so yeah, this is the newest crime series that I found this year, and I love it. So we are down to our last 2 books for this video, and the first one is The King of Crows by Libba Bray. This is the final installment in the Diviners Quartet, and I obviously can't discuss what happened in this one, but the general premise of the series is that it takes place in the 1920s, and it follows these group of people that are known as diviners that have some sort of supernatural power. One person can walk through dreams, one person can touch an object and know the history of the person it belonged to, and it all those type of things, but there is this kind of dark spirit that is causing wrecking havoc in the human world, and it kind of goes off from there. But like I said, this is the final installment. I did have some things in here that I just didn't love. I felt like it could be condensed a lot, but it was just a lot of fun, and I think it was a good conclusion to this quartet. And what I really like about this series in general is that it doesn't shy away from the darker sides of that time period, because we think of the Roaring 20s, we think of flappers and prohibition and just kind of the glamour and glitz of the 20s, but it doesn't shy away from the eugenics movement, racism, and all those things. So I think I like how that author incorporated those kind of societal issues, and it kind of draws a lot of parallels to what is going on in the current, you know, political climate now, and also these social kind of issues that have been brought up over 2020 as well. So I think that makes it really unique how it integrates those things into this kind of fantastical story. So if you're looking for something spooky to read, I recommend this series. And lastly, I have The House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, and this is the book that me and my friend read for our little book club, and we devoured it. It's like over 800, like almost 800 pages, and we finished it within like a matter of like 5 days. Like, we couldn't put it down, and I think part of that has to do with how like we started reading this book right when lockdown hit, and so it was nice to be able to just lose ourselves in this world, even though it has its own problems, because our world around us was just like on fire at that point. So it provided a good like escape for both of us, but this one was just a lot of fun. I like acknowledge the flaws of a lot of Sarah J. Maas's books, and that are also kind of prevalent in here as well, but yeah, I still enjoyed it nonetheless. Like, I think it's very interesting, and I'm really excited to see how this series progresses. But yeah, it follows this girl who is half fae, half human, and her best friend ends up getting murdered within the first like 100 pages of the book, so it's not like a spoiler, but that kind of turns her whole life around, like upside down, I should say. And so when she's approached by like the head of this I guess like not town or like city, I guess, in order to investigate further, because there's these string of murders taking place that are relatively similar to what actually, like how her friend was murdered, and it kind of goes off from there. But there's a lot of like political things going on, and like a hierarchy of people that are, I guess, like creatures that are higher up on the like social ladder than others. So like there's angels, and then there's like fae and like other things, and then there's like humans. So I really liked that kind of political aspect in here, and it ended on quite a big cliffhanger, so I'm really excited to kind of see what happens next. But like I said, this just provided some escapism of when everything just kind of shut down in 2020. So that's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what some of your favorite reads were of this year and all those other fun stuff. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.